Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to do a kind of mini shelf tour because I actually just don't have that many of this particular genre in my collection. Most of what I have in this collection is here actually with me in Japan. And today that topic is, or that subgenre is, spy and espionage fiction with a little bit of men's adventure thrown in there, just a tiny little bit. I have quite a bit more on my Kindle, which I'm not going to talk about today. I do have some cool things, mostly in paperback. Now, I'm not the hugest, or I haven't been in the past, the biggest fan of espionage or spy fiction, but I am a huge fan of it in the movies. I am a big James Bond fan, James Bond movie fan. I'm also a James Bond novel fan. I have some here that I'll show you in a moment. But as far as spy fiction to read, I have kind of only in the last decade or so gotten into it somewhat. But it isn't one of my go-to genres. I like it though, especially if it's done in a certain way. So let me talk about what I have so far. Speaking of James Bond, I'll start off with James Bond. I have all of the James Bond novels by Ian Fleming and the one-story collection, Quantum of Solace, on my Kindle, but I also have quite a few paperbacks, or several paperbacks. These are Signet editions, starting with, and I'm going to go in chronological order of paperback first. I have a couple of trade paperbacks, one that's actually the very first Bond novel, which I'll go a little out of order. Sorry about that, but I don't want to mix the editions. So let's start with the Signets. This is my Signet edition of From Russia with Love, which I believe is the second novel after Casino Royale. And again, this has got a nice little photo of Ian Fleming looking all suave there. Now, Ian Fleming, of course, wrote most of these novels in his retreat in Jamaica, Goldeneye. And of course, anyone who knows some of the backstory of Ian Fleming knows that he had a real kind of spy connection in World War II. One of the men kind of working in not MI6, but what maybe would become MI6 or MI5 down the road. And he brought that knowledge and his knowledge of the world to various Bond novels. Now, of course, at that time, especially in Britain in the time of austerity, traveling around the world like James Bond, the character did, was kind of a dream life for the average person, also in America and around the world. So at that time, that kind of world globe-trotting lifestyle was a rare thing. So that brought a lot of excitement. Ian Fleming is very good about putting in lots of local color and detail, and he was very much a gourmet. He loved good food. He loved to describe the atmosphere of wherever Bond ended up, whether it was a casino or a exotic hotel or other location. He did a very nice job, and he's a good writer. Here's another one, Goldfinger. Now, those of you who've seen the James Bond movies are familiar with, here she is, the Golden Girl, and the rest of her legs on the back. You're familiar with kind of some of the plots of these, although the books do differ quite a bit from the movies in certain ways. They're much more down to earth, much more grounded. For example, I don't have the book here. I believe I do own it elsewhere, but Moonraker, the Roger Moore 1979 film, is vastly different and much bigger scale than the book was, written much earlier. We think of the Bond films, at least the Connery Bonds, as really being centered in the 60s, but in the books, they're really, and they somewhere from the 60s for sure, but the mindset was a little more 50s, a little more immediately post-war. Now, this is the one that caused all sorts of legal problems for Fleming, Thunderball. I won't go into all the details there. Great. But as you can see, they have a tie-in. This is still Signet with that awesome poster from one of my favorite of the James Bond films. These are in pretty good shape, pretty good nick, right? And here's a scene where Connery is smacking a enemy agent who's actually dressed up as his widow, if you've seen the movie. Anyway, this is one that's interesting because it was written, I believe, either kind of based off the script of the movie, rather than being written ahead of time, and then the movie based off of it, the movie script based off the book. This one was kind of around the same time or even shortly thereafter, but I think a little before, but it led to a whole legal snafu that dogged Eon Productions, the company that produced Bond movies, for decades. This one also is my favorite turned into my favorite James Bond movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And this one, of course, featured George Lazenby as Bond in the movie. And the reason why that movie with Lazenby, 1969 film, is so good, I think, is that its script is very closely based off of this excellent novel. Not much on the back of this one, but... And I have one more signet, and Even Though You Only Live Twice precedes On Her Majesty's Secret Service in the films. In the book world, it actually came after. And it's very different from the movie with Sean Connery, but it has an interesting cover there, right? Girls, thrills, chills, and sex galore in a smash new movie starring Sean Connery. So they're trying to tie it into the movie for sure. But the book was written first, as far as I'm aware. You got a little, some kind of traditional samurai armor there. And then coming August 23rd, the last James Bond novel, Ian Fleming, The Man with the Golden Gun. I believe at this time Ian Fleming had passed away, or would shortly thereafter anyway. And that was the last Bond novel that he would write. Now, that's all I have in the mass market paperback with me here, but I do have a couple of these really nice editions that came out from Penguin. And when did they come out? I think it was sometime in the early 2000s. Yeah, maybe 2002. Here is Casino Royale, the very first James Bond novel. You see these very stylish, lovely covers with some excellent artwork and design. Trade paper there. So that's technically the first novel, so I probably should have showed it to you first, but I wanted to keep these editions separate. I have another one. This is a short story collection, Quantum of Solace. Ian Fleming wrote several Bond stories, some of which were later turned into movies. Some of the stories in here include Quantum of Solace, of course, which was the Daniel Craig movie, the second one. There's also For Your Eyes Only, From a View to a Kill, Octopussy, The Living Daylights. Okay, so those ones all became, were their titles and maybe a piece of the story, much more expanded for the movie, came out later. So they were mined by Eon for other Bond films. And again, we have the nice back cover there. Have a sticker I never quite took off, and bought this in, this one looks like I bought it in Japan. I'm not sure about the other one. Okay, that does it for Bond. Okay, now I'd like to talk about a precursor to Bond, and these were the Mr. Moto novels. Now I have a nice Avenel, like I showed in the previous video about my Ellery Queen. I also have some Agatha Christie Avenel collections over here. But I have the Mr. Moto novels, almost all of them in this Avenel hardback collection. Now, those of who are aware of Mr. Moto are probably aware of the film starring Peter Lorre, but they were originally novels written by John P. Marquand, who's quite a fine writer, and they're essentially, I should say, spy adventure novels set, most of them pre-World War II. The last one, Right You Are, Mr. Moto, also known as Stop Over Tokyo. And there was a movie made of Stop Over Tokyo, but it did not feature Mr. Moto. But of course, Peter Lorre starred in 8 Mr. Moto films. and they're very fun B-movies with lots of color and lots of action. And Mr. Moto is quite the badass. Even though he's small and polite, he's just as happy to throw an enemy overboard from an ocean liner or stab him to death or whatever. He is pretty ruthless. Now in the books, he's more of a mover and shaker behind the scenes. Usually, the book is told from the point of view of a young American, maybe a little footloose, could be an adventurer, a pilot, sometimes even an agent, whatever, who's happened, or a boat skipper, happens to be mixed up in some kind of nasty, hairy, dangerous political situation, quite often in China or in the Tibet. I think one is, a couple are in China. One's in, I think, Southeast Asia. One's in South Pacific. Anyway, Mr. Moto happens to come around and slightly befriend. I say slightly because he is mostly a benevolent figure, but he's plenty ruthless. So he's working to his country's advantage, Japan's advantage, against other countries, of course. But he tries his best to keep the hero and heroine. Usually there's a heroine that the hero falls for, a mysterious or not femme fatale exactly, but a woman who's pretty capable in her own right, sometimes an agent herself, who's carrying some information or is in some trouble, and the hero, the white hero who thinks he knows what he's doing, tries to help, but it's really Mr. Moto who straightens things out. Now I have some really cool Little Brown and Company paperback editions, which I found, and I think I have one that is not covered in this hardback edition, so that means I have all 6, I believe, of the Mr. Moto novels. Or maybe 7. Here's Last Laugh, Mr. Moto. You see it has a very cool cover, including a depiction of Mr. Moto, who looks quite a bit like his Peter Lorre incarnation in the movies. Still have, they're a little bit bigger, I guess. Well, not quite. Slightly bigger than a regular paperback, mass market paperback, might maybe a half an inch or so. And, kind of thicker print inside, and I'm a little careful about the binding here, but this is pretty cool. I love these very exotic, kind of stylized covers. This is Last Laugh, Mr. Moto. Then we have Thank You, Mr. Moto. Again, we got an ugly sticker there. Sorry for that. And also a weird ISBN thing I need to try to remove. But you see a very interesting and stylish cover there. And Thank You, Mr. Moto and Last Laugh, Mr. Moto are not in this 5-book collection. So I believe with that, I have all of the Mr. Motos. I believe there were 7. One of the ones that is in that Avenel collection is this one. Mr. Moto Is So Sorry. Okay. Again, very cool cover. Again, apologies for the ugly stickers. I have to remove these one of these days. I need to study Jules Burt's cleaning and removing stickers videos more carefully on his channel. Anyway, just really neat cover illustrations and design there. Those are all very cool. And most of these stories all date pre-World War II. This one is 1936. And I believe, let's see, oops. Thank You, Mr. Moto is also 1936. Last Laugh, Mr. Moto was originally published in 1941. So I believe right around when the U.S. entered World War II, that's when the Mr. Moto's novels mostly dried up. Although, as I said, John P. Marquand came back to do the last one, Right You Are, Mr. Moto, which is set in Japan. And that one's a little harder edged in a way, a little more downbeat, with a couple of agents, male and female, working in Japan against some enemy agents, not Japanese agents, but I think they're Russian agents, of course, by this stage. And that last one, I believe, was 52, was when that one came out. So it's a little bit later. Okay, I have a couple from shorts. It's actually a long-running series, but I only have in paperback form. In physical book form, I only have 2 of the later ones. And these are the Colonel Charles Russell British spy novels. They're kind of, here's the first one that I have, The Median Line. These are Walker British Mysteries Walker editions. They have the lovely red spines and covers. And of course, I have a lot of other of these, but not of the Colonel Russell William Haggard series, but of other mystery series, including some George Gently and other miscellaneous, more traditional British mysteries. And I have The Scorpion's Tail. I have read both of these, and they are excellent, although slightly, I would say they're not super action-packed. There is some action, but in these ones, especially later in the series, this is a 25-book series written by William Haggard, starring Colonel Charles Russell. And by this point, he's essentially retired in his 60s, but he's still working for the British government, seemingly on vacation in some hot spots around the world. And they're very well written and witty and fairly steely and tough situations that Russell gets himself into, even as an elderly spy. I recommend that series. I have a lot of the earlier ones on Kindle. Most of the earlier ones are available on Kindle or ebook editions. I don't know about these later ones. I'd love to find more in paperback, though. I know several other booktubers like Nick at The Book Graveyard and Tim at Secret Fire Books. Surely several others online have talked about Edward S. Ahrens. Now, mostly he's well known for the Sam Durrell spy series, but this one is actually featuring a different character. I don't think it's part of a series, but this is a character called Barney Cornell, and this is the State Department murders. Again, these are all, I believe, Fawcett World Library books. Pretty cool cover on that. This, I believe, is a one-off. I don't think this is a series. What he's mostly well known for are the Sam Durrell spy novels, and I was very surprised by these when I read one of these. I've read, which I'll get to, is towards the end, but was in fact, it's the last one in publication order from 1970, Assignment Star Stealers. This one was really well written. I was quite surprised how well written and evocative it is. This one is set in Morocco, and as usual, Sam Durrell. He's not a super. I don't really picture him like this picture on the back here, but he's just a regular spy. Gets involved with cases. And the writer, Edward S. Ahrens, does an excellent job capturing the setting wherever these happen to be set. Like I said, this one was set somewhere in Morocco, I believe. But he goes all around the world getting involved in mysteries or in spy capers. And they're pretty hardcore and serious for the most part. And like I said, Ahrens is a really good writer. So I have... after I read that one, I picked it up on a whim at one of my favorite bookstores that doesn't exist anymore, ABC Books, back in Washington State. I said, that looks cool. I'll try it out, see what it's about. I really liked it, so when I went back the next time, I bought some more. I wish I had even more, but I do have a few. So this one is Assignment Carlotta Cortez. This is the earliest in publication order of what I have, and I believe this one is 64. Oh, sorry, this one's 1959. So he was, definitely a contemporary of Ian Fleming when he was writing these. The State Department murders was from 1950, so he started pretty early. Again, that wasn't part of the Sam Durrell series. Carlotta Cortez, 1959. Then we have Assignment Sulusi. Very cool. Again, we have that, what looks more like a Mike Hammer little illustration there than actual, how I picture Sam Durrell is a bit more smooth than that. Then there's Assignment The Cairo Dancers. This one's a little thinner than the other ones. We got a couple of sexy dancing Cairo dancers on the front there. And again, there's that old picture of Sam Durrell on the back. This one, I believe, is from 65. Here's a cool cover with a girl, attractive and scantily clad lady and a tiger. Assignment Moon Girl. Okay, and then we have, similar cover on the back, but they're using interesting colors to differentiate between the two. This one, the next one I have here is from, when was this published? 1968, and that's Assignment Nuclear Nude. A little more salacious titles as they go on, I guess. Nuclear Nude. And this one seems to be set in Singapore and Florida. Again, Sam Durrell's little image on the back there. And of course, the one I showed you before, the one that got me into the series, Assignment Star Stealers from 1970. Okay, almost finished. Just a few more to show you. These were often found in the bookshop shelves near the Edward S. Aarons, and these are the Philip Attlee, the Joe Gall novels. So we have number 2 here, The Silken Baroness Contract. Now, these are not as artfully written as Aaron's Sam Durrell series. Joe Gall is basically a hitman for the government who lives in his kind of penthouse mountain, not penthouse, I shouldn't say, kind of mountain retreat. And he's quite a glib character. But again, cool artwork. These ones are faucets. So again, that's the Silken Baroness Contract. It's got some Joe Gall on the back there. And as you'll notice, not this one. This one seems to be based off a different model. But some of the other covers you're going to see, we're going to see our old friend from Doc Savage covers. We're going to see Steve Holland. Not so much in how they depict in the picture of Joe Gall, but in the as far as the top up here, right? You'll see this particular guy here, but this is the Rock-a-Bye Contract. I don't think so much this one is based off of a particular model here, and these are, this one is from 68, Rock-a-Bye Contract, and the Silken Baroness Contract is 64. So they're somewhat, somewhat written around the same time as a lot of the Edward S. Aarons, Sam Durrell books. This is what I mean. Skeleton Coast Contract. Take a look at that guy's face right there. Does he look familiar? That looks like Steve Holland to me. Anyway, pretty cool cover. Joe Gall's got his spear gun. He's probably going to toast a bunch of people with that. This one, he's in Kenya, I believe, for this one. So again, these are pretty globe-trotting. Notice he's also known as the Nullifier. Now, that doesn't quite roll off the tongue, so that's probably why they use Joe Gall instead. And then we have the last one I have here. I will probably pick up some more. This was from 1969. This is the Ill Wind Contract. And again, Steve Holland. I think you can tell. He's not wearing a ripped shirt. He's barely wearing a shirt at all. Anyway, someone used Steve Holland as a model for this. Again, the man is Joe Gall. His job is to win. And I don't know where this one is set. Oh, he's in Indonesia. So again, all over the place, right? And the very last thing I want to show you today is my one paperback copy that I have of a men's adventure book. I have read lots of men's adventure novels in the past. I have a few destroyers and a few executioner novels on my Kindle, but I think I have another couple of destroyers in paperback back in the States, but this is the only one I have here. This is the Destroyer Holy Terror. And now the Destroyer this is a Pinnacle book. And again, you'll see a cool little image there of Remo Williams, who is the Destroyer, and his Sinanju, North Korean, I believe, master Chuin. Always have trouble pronouncing his name. Now, of all the men's adventure books I've read, this is the best as far as writing. It's got a lot of humor usually in most of the books. The writing is a step above. It's quite slick. Some plots are pretty wild and silly, but the character of Remo Williams, and of course the guy who lives with him and trains him, this Chi-un, I guess is how you would call him. They put it together. Usually most Koreans' names would be separated, Chi-un, but Chi-un is just a wonderful character. So sarcastic. He loves watching soap operas. He's a total master of all kinds of death dealing, and Remo Williams is right up there with him as his prime pupil, the only Westerner to learn this secret Eastern art of Sinanju, which is kind of passed down as an art of assassination through the centuries. And Remo learns it, and he works for a kind of shadowy, I guess, not exactly government, but kind of related to the government, but working on its own to take down threats to the safety of the world. Very, very fun series. I highly recommend this series. You can start anywhere in the series and have a good time, I think. And that pretty much does it for my spy-fi and espionage collection. I hope you enjoyed some of those covers. Please leave some comments and some other series you might recommend. Like I mentioned, I do have a lot on the Kindle that I can't show you in paperback form. I have several Donald Hamilton, hard-hitting Matt Helm stories, and some other related spy fiction or espionage fiction. Again, it's not one of my favorite genres, but I do enjoy it in the right frame of mind. And I'm hoping to get more of those Joe Gall, more of the Sam Durrells. If I can track down any more of these super cool editions of the Mr. Moto books, I will. And certainly more of these William Haggard, Colonel Russell ones. So thanks for watching as always. Hope you enjoyed. Take good care, and we'll see you in the next video.